Can you see me? There I am. Okay. All right. So give me your thumbs up, your ones, and let me know if you can see and hear me. Oh, perfect, perfect, perfect. I was having a little trouble. Give thanks and Shabbat Shalom, everyone. That's always how it happens, right? When you're a little nervous, things tend to go wrong, but maybe that'll work itself out to where I can ease up a little bit. Now, give thanks. Peace, everyone. So, of course, I'm going to begin with our libation that we recite every Shabbat. And on this seventh day that we guard our Sabbath, we anew rest from our work. As we align with the movement of the heavens, we align with the spirit of the heavens. We give honor to the Father and Mother of all the worlds. We honor Yah as head and core of our being. We honor our ancestral spiritual warriors who have upheld the truth. We honor the righteous remnant who came before us. We affirm the sacred values of our nation that we have been charged to be stewards of. We affirm our responsibility to serve as a light to the lost nation of ancient Anu. We affirm our obligation to study natural law and align ourselves with them. We affirm our divine authority over the lower stages of our own faculties. Let us be filled with the changing winds of knowledge so that we will have the mind of Yah. Let us be filled with the energy of illumination so that we will have eyes to see. Let us be filled with the fortune of humility so that we will have ears to hear. And let us be filled with the serenity of deep water so that we will accept the prophecy of the Creator Spirit. We strive for fellowship. We strive for sovereignty. We strive to meet our highest evolution. We strive to be curators of deep thought and wisdom. We strive to conduct ourselves with the dignity that our actualized selves demand. It is so. Give thanks, and welcome everyone. Welcome Brother Cruz, Brother Chris, Brothers Antonio, Chief Yuya, Sisters Kashia, and my precious. Welcome everyone and give thanks for joining me on this live Sabbath. Our fifth Sabbath, of course, is going to be live on YouTube. And here I am. And today I'm going to talk about the story of Rahab. I'll be pulling from scriptures, and those will be Joshua 2:13, Joshua 6:15 through 25, Matthew 1:5, Hebrews 11:31, and James 2:25. So there'll be a few others that I will touch on, but these are the main scriptures that I'll be pulling from today. In just 1 second, my throat is really dry. I'll be right back. 1 second. All right, sorry about that. I had to get some water so I won't be parched during my presentation because it's very important. All right, so what do you put your investments in? I remember when I was younger, my aunt, she brought me this strawberry shortcake bank, and it was like a life-size doll strawberry shortcake. Y'all remember that strawberry shortcake? But we were never allowed to have dolls, like white dolls, so my strawberry shortcake bank, she was brown. She was a cute little thing, and I used to love that bank. So I'll put my coins and my money in there. Sometimes I feel like I would even put like rings and stuff. So any little trinkets and coins and money I would put in my little strawberry shortcake bank. And that wasn't even just when I was a young girl. So I've had that bank for a long time. It's probably still around, but it's in storage somewhere. But from there, I used to have I didn't have a bank account, but I used to have like all these singles. And so I would put rubber bands on my singles and hide them under my bed and put them in different places or whatever. But that was a little step above my strawberry shortcake bank. And knows all that money couldn't fit into that bank like that. And look, I know what you're thinking, but I didn't have all the ones, all the singles because I had a different profession. I was actually a bartender and a waitress. So I would have to work. I would still have to work hard for those singles, but you know, it was for something a little more respectable, I guess. Um, and then, of course, I invested my time and money into going to school. And because I wanted something greater for my future, I didn't want to always have to be a bartender and work in that type of environment. So I always was reaching to get to another level. And from there, of course, sometimes I'm still reaching to get to higher levels in my education and then in my profession as well. But I always knew that I didn't want to just be working and having jobs just to make money. It's like I always definitely wanted to have a family and to have that man to have a covering. And so I started investing in relationships and where that was going to take me because I didn't always want to just be me by myself. And it wasn't until now in my while I'm within, I knew that I gained a different understanding of, well, a greater understanding of not just striving to be with a man, but to be under the covering of a righteous man. And that's so important. And that's right in line with the story of Rahab. That's right in line with the story of, I'm sorry, sometimes I'm going to look at the chat and you guys, y'all know y'all keep it live and direct. So I want to stay focused. I said I'm going to play it straight. I'm not going to act up. I'm not going to cut up. I'm just going to give you the story how it's supposed to be given. But the story of Rahab, it exhibits just that. It shows how she made certain choices and investments to maintain her lifestyle, but later she sacrificed them for something greater. Okay, so Rahab, yes, Sister Maksha, I know. Okay, drinking on camera. But last time, because I had to get up, I had to, be conservative. Okay, so Rahab, she was, well, her name, let's start with the meaning of her name. Her name means to make wide or to broaden, to be notable or to become more courageous. And she was actually the first Canaanite woman to become faithful to the God of Israel and to protect her family from certain death. So just a little backstory about the Canaanites. The Canaanites, they were the descendants of Canaan, who was the son of Ham. Ham, of course, was the son of Noah. He was the youngest son of Noah's three sons. And there came a time where Noah cursed Canaan and all his descendants from him due to a sin from his father, Ham. Okay. And the Canaanites, they were idolaters and they had no faith in the one true God, Yah. So they worshiped all different things. And of course, they had their statues and things. So they weren't in alignment with worshiping or honoring Yah. And the land that they inhabited was Jericho. And this was promised to Israel and the descendants of Abraham. And it was the promised land. So it soon will be conquered by Joshua and his family. Now, Joshua or Yeshua, he, after the death of Moses, he was appointed to succeed him. And he was a great military man and had instructions to cross over Jordan into Jericho in order to claim that promised land that the Canaanites inhabited, right? And And Yah promised him that I'm going to be with you. I will not forsake you, but you must continue to follow my word. You continue to follow the law in this book, and be strong, be courageous, and don't have any fear of what's about to happen, because again, I'm going to be following you. Be a man of good courage. So Joshua was following that. And this is right about the time when we were introduced to Rahab. So Joshua, before he went over and to conquer Jericho, he sent over 2 spies. And of course, the spies were going to go over there and they want to get some intel. So they came upon the house of a harlot. And this harlot was Rahab. And, they say harlot, but okay, she had an inn. She was an innkeeper. And of course, this inn, it could double as a brothel. And, well, she was a pro. Another word would be isha zona, which translates in Hebrew to prostitute woman. And they went to her house. And of course, they enjoyed what she had to offer in her dwelling. But if these places, like these inns, these were places where a lot of people, when men were looking for intel or men want to meet up with each other, this is the type of place that they would go to. So they would frequent this, and this is very common for spies or military men to come for espionage just to get more information and intel. So, you want to go over here, you want to learn the weaknesses of who you're trying to conquer. And Rahab, being her profession, she came to know many men. So, of course, she will have information, and maybe even other women that were there had information that can share with these spies who came over into Jericho. So, if you, anyone knows, if anybody is new coming into your town, then somebody's going to talk like, who are these people? What's going on? So the information of these spies being in Jericho, it got back to the king. So of course the king, he's going to go to Rahab like, I know that you have these men here, that these men came here, so bring them forth. We want to see who they are so we can capture them or whatever. And Rahab, she had already hid the men. She put them up on her roof, underneath some stalks of flax. So it's important to understand what flax is. Back in the day, well, I'm not even sure how they make it today, but flax was used to make linen, and linen was considered a product of the wealthy. So you will also see even priests, they would wear linen. All of their, their garments would be made of linen, and people who were close to God would have these wealthy products, or this wealthy garment that they clothe themselves in. But Rahab, she had stalks of it, the flax that were used to make the linen, on her roof. So that's just showing another level of her investment. So she already had her business downstairs, but she also had wealth on her roof. And that wealth she used to cover, she covered the men from Israel. Okay. So she didn't know these men. So she's hiding them in her wealth, the things that she have saved up for, what she may have not wanted to be a prostitute anymore and move up to something greater, to a different lifestyle. But she let them have access to everything that she pretty much was working for in her wealth. So they were in there hiding. And she was that woman of wisdom. So it's like, yes, I may not know them, but you know what? I'm going to put my faith into something greater. And she did what she had to do. She acted. That's one, well, I'll talk about it a little later, but she put her wit into action. So when the king, she came and asked her, where are these men? And she was like, yes, the men were here, but I don't know where they are now. So you should probably send your men to go look out beyond the gates, because they're probably headed back towards Jordan. And so she directed them away from her home. So the they won't be looking at her anymore. So it's like they already left. Yes, they were here, but they're gone, right? So, but before she hid them, you want to may wonder why would she do that? Why is she risking her statue or her place in this environment, her community, to hide these men? So we learned that before she hid them, she told them, she was like, the men of Jericho, they really fear the Israelites. They heard about how Yah dried up the Red Sea. They heard about how Joshua conquered the kings of the Amorites, and what is this? The Joshua was conquering everybody, destroying and utterly just getting rid of anyone who was not Israelite. And we're going and conquering all the lands, and now they know that this is about to happen to them. So they are in fear of these men coming here because they know that Yah is the one true God of the heavens and the earth. And they get all faint of heart. They don't have any courage in the face of these Israelites because of what they know. And she's probably hearing these stories from them as they come to her in her resting spot, and they're telling her all this information because she's probably not venturing out because she's she's a woman and this is what she's doing. You also consider, I'll talk about it a little later, but consider where she lives and how her home is built. She's kind of on the outskirts, so Rahab, she hid the spies on her roof, amongst all of her wealth, sacrificing that, not knowing what they may do with it. They could have come and just relinquished it all. But she's a businesswoman, and she's her work. She's all about making transactions. So she's like, okay, she had a proposition. She was like, since I showed kindness to you by hiding you, when you come back to conquer this land, will you be kind enough to protect and spare me and my father and everyone in my household? So she was asking for them to give her a sure sign of that they would abide by that. And like, don't, because I did this, protect me here. All right. So can y'all promise me that? And they were in agreement. They said, sure. Actually, what they said was, our life for yours, even in death. Okay. So with that, she trusted them. She lowered them down out of her window and advised them to spend 3 days hiding in the hills until the guards returned back to the city. And they told her to put a scarlet cord in her window and keep all of her family inside until after they come, and they will all be spared. So I wanted to ask you guys, and you can just throw it in the chat and leave comments. I really don't. Maybe I'll stop in a minute to look at the chat. But the significance of the scarlet cord, or pretty much what is that alluding to? So we've seen that scarlet cord, or that color, or a signifying something else, right? Signifying of the color red, but put this outside your window so we know that this is your house. And we've seen that a couple of times in the scripture. So just put in there a couple times. Chief Yuya says, her house was built into the wall of Jericho, and her roof reached the top of the wall. Though she was in the city, she was still an outlier. Her support was in the city, and her wealth was stored there. Indeed. So and that's what I'm about to say now. Is that's actually mentioned in Joshua 2:15. It says she dwelt on the wall. Rahab built her house on the wall of city. So it's like she put all of her trust in this wall of Babylon, right? And the Hebrew word for a wall is homa. So why this could mean protection, considering her profession, you definitely have to look at her like she was an outsider. She was on the outlier of the city because she probably wasn't respected or wanted to be by her community, placed in the center where she's seen and known by everyone. So it kind of it sets her apart from everyone else. So when Joshua came to take over Jericho, and the priests came and they were blowing their trumpets, and all the walls were falling down, and they were going and conquering and killing everyone. But while the walls were collapsing and falling, everything came down and everyone was dying except for Rahab and her household. So it's like she's on the wall, her house is in the wall, but everything around her is down, but hers is still standing there strong because, of course, of her act of loyalty, or what is called Hesed. She was protected. They spared her. She was covered by righteous men. And you can almost look at that like how she had the men on her roof up top. So even then they were covering her. So that's just something that's you know, kind of think about and dig a little deeper in. But they were covering her then, made that promise. She held up her end of the bargain. They kept their loyalty to what they agreed to, and now she has been spared. All due because she had faith in something greater. So just like, my story in the beginning when I was talking about how I was always trying to get to something bigger. I'm always looking for something greater, but only now I realize that those material things, those more secular things that I was striving for had no value. And, I'm understanding that the value is actually coming when you have that covering of the righteous man, or being within that righteous nation. And Rahab, she understood that. She got that. And that's why she was like, yeah, I may be betraying my people, but I know that this is what's right. So I'm going to do what I need to do in order to get into this righteousness. And her faith, I talked about her faith in something greater. So we can look at the 14 keys, Imani, which means faith. And Chief Yuya says, faith is a knowing in that which is unseen. Faith calls us to reason with our divine mind. And then Hebrews 11:31, it kind of points that out for us when, in relation to Rahab, it says, by faith, the heart of Rahab perished not with them that believe not, when she had received the spies with peace. Her faith led her to a pure and honorable career. I think y'all help me out with this one. I think her career after, she became righteous and got with the Israelites, that she may have been like a dressmaker or something, only because she had the linens, right? So now I'm going to go ahead and make clothes. But, she was able to marry into a righteous family, which now protects her or covers her underneath the promises of the Israelites. So it gets even better. It gets real cool because Rahab, she was the mother of Boaz. And Boaz begat Obed with Ruth. And Obed begat Jesse, who begat David, the king. So because of Rahab's faith, she went from being a harlot to a heroine for saving, actually for, she helped the spies. Like she gave them all the information that they need to know to go back and tell Joshua so they can conquer this land. So she was a heroine to being in the direct lineage of Yahweh. That's pretty cool. It just, I don't know, it just highlights how when you work hastily, when you're working by faith, when you're acting instead of just thinking about and procrastinating and pondering on what needs to be done, when you just go ahead and put your actions into play, how things can really change and turn out for you, and Rahab is a great example of that. And we've observed other women in our studies that showed that as well, that showed how faith and action, it's received well, and you get that ultimate honor. And I can totally feel like that ultimate honor will be coming under a righteous patriarchy. So we Chief Yuya, he talked about Abigail it was a few months ago. It was in August. And he talked about how Abigail moved in haste and she was receptive to the needs of her household, and she humbled herself, right? And her actions were acknowledged by King David. Of course, that's like um, Rahab's great great grandson, King David, right? um, and in the time of her husband's death, King David took her under him to be his wife. And what happened? She was covered. If you look at Exodus 1:15 through 20, the king of Egypt, he told the midwives, he was like, when you help the Hebrew women deliver a baby, if it's a boy, kill it. And if it's a girl, let it live, right? However, the midwives, they feared Yah, and they didn't obey the kings of Egypt's orders, and they let the boys live. And because of that, Yah was good to the midwives, because what happened? The Israelites, they increased and they became stronger. Because the midwives feared Yah, he gave them families of their own. So they were unmated, they didn't have any covering before, but because they were obedient and they submitted to the one God, what happened? They were covered. Y'all see a pattern? Y'all see a pattern happen here? And now we come to the story of Rahab, and we learn through her sacrifice of her lifestyle and the wealth that she built. She aligned herself with the righteous nation, and now she was covered. So they were covered, covered, covered. If y'all don't know, it's because y'all might just be a little bit too young, but was a movie called Colors. I just a little play on words. Sorry, had to throw a little musical. Since I didn't have any music in in the beginning, that's my music. So within our cultural constructs, an uncovered woman is a dangerous woman. And I knew we have a great system of responsibility and accountability, and that is our covering initiative. So I knew women, we are very fortunate in order to have the grace of protection of the Anu man until we are properly mated. So we also learn through extensive studies during the Shema that happens every Shabbat, even on Anu Life Global Ministries. That's just a short plug. Every Shema, we recently been covering the courtship process, and this courtship process ensures the longevity of a righteous union. And that's, I keep repeating righteousness, 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 because that's so important. It's not so much that you want to just have a man, you want to come into that righteous union. You want to come under a righteous household, correct? And that's, of course, dependent on if that woman is willing to be formed by a righteous man. Is she willing to submit to that and not feel like, oh, because Abigail had money, Rahab, she had her wealth. They weren't out here talking about, oh, I have what I have, I don't need no man. No, they knew exactly what was more worthy. They knew what was more valuable. And it wasn't the material things that they had, but it was being covered and being protected by that righteous man. So we may be in a situation where we are of a certain age. Most of us are non-virginal. And some may have that harlot mentality and may not want to submit to a man and still want to feel like, oh, I have to prepare myself. I'm healing, I'm preparing myself, I'm taking spiritual baths, or, things that women do on the process to thinking that they're being greater. But it's all about that idolatry, and not really knowing that that's not where your redemption will come from. But of course, it's your father's responsibility in order to prepare you. So if you did not get that proper upbringing from your father, if he wasn't your covering until you moved into your husband's house, then it's going to be your husband's responsibility. It's like, as Chief calls it, on the job training. So it's not up to you to feel like you're in a position to prepare yourself. You do not have the right tools or the proper standards to even be able to bring yourself up to a space where you can be redeemed without being covered. We know our hierarchy model, and it does not start with the woman. So again, keeping in mind, Abigail, she humbled herself. When the opportunity presented itself, she acted. Rahab, she stepped outside of her home when she stepped outside of her home prematurely. She left her father's home and she didn't have a covering. She was ousted. She later sacrificed everything for something greater because, again, she put her faith in a man of God and was able to evolve to something much more loftier and evolve into something, a greater way of life, you know? So, what signifies the value and quality of your faith? Are you investing in something more valuable than what you perceive as wealth? We must always remember to take a sober assessment and analyze what criteria we're using in order to gauge what is a worthy investment. Or are we still going to be bound to that which is secular? So Rahab, she wasn't saved solely because of her faith in Yah, but how she acted within that faith. She had a great understanding of the value of coming into a righteous nation. And I'm just going to close with a quote from the Anu Way, and it states, "We are striving to return to our celestial source. That return begins with a reawakening. When individuals truly evolve and awaken into their path, they never know it. It is along that course of the natural life happenings that they evolve into their greatest being." So I just want to say thank you for allowing me to speak in this space. I give thanks to you, Chief Yuya, give thanks to the Most High Yah, and I give thanks to my community, Anu. And Shalom, Anu. That's another little plug. Peace, everyone. And please, please, if you have any questions or comments, you can put them in the chat. And I see you, Sham Joy. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Let your friends know, let the people know what we're doing in Anu, because again, it's about building, it's about increasing and being greater. Peace. Give thanks, everyone.